Good day to everyone that's watching this program from the Vattikuti Foundation Webinar Series. I'm Dave Meinhardt here in suburban Detroit, and we have an important program for us all to learn some things about the importance of initiating robotic surgery in the developing world. Joining us is the CEO of the Vattikuti Foundation, Dr. Mahendra Bhandari, and I've gotten to know him well over the years. He's got an incredible mind and incredible drive to keep studying and improving medicine in so many facets. And without any further ado, I'm going to let Dr. Bhandari take over the program and introduce us more fully to our guests.
I welcome everybody, including the guests, particularly Jean and Gautam, who spared their valuable time only weekend on Saturday. This is to support Gurung's mission, and we have been in touch with Pratik since he was working with Jean as a fellow, and it's really commendable for him to spend time in England and greener pastures in United States. He decided to go back to Nepal and struggle. So this is a movement, and I'm sure it would bring relief to the people. And Vattikuti Foundation has unstinted support for Pratik, and we hope that very soon he will have a powerful robotic surgery program.
Thank you, Dr. Bhandari, for the kind introductory words. I am Pratik. I'm a urologist in Kathmandu, Nepal. I'm going to just outline the format of the talk for today, which is the importance of robotic surgery initiation in the developing world. I'm going to talk for about 15-20 minutes, and then perhaps we can have a little bit of a free-flowing discussion around some of the issues, and we can get our esteemed panelists to kindly share their experiences and also discuss some of the points. First of all, thank you, Dr. Bhandari, for kindly sponsoring and initiating this webinar today. This is a very important topic for the emerging and developing countries in terms of the use of robotics. Dr. Bhandari is one of the pioneers of robotic surgery, not only in the US, but also he's helped to, through the Vattikuti Foundation philanthropic activities, help initiate and support robotics elsewhere outside of the US, including India, where of course we have Dr. Gagan Gautam, who is based at the Max Institute, and he is one of the beneficiaries of the Vattikuti Foundation program. I saw firsthand just only last year, how well he and his team are doing in Delhi, tackling some complex partial nephrectomy cases. He seemed to do it with consummate ease. I was so impressed. Of course, we have Dr. John Joseph, who kindly mentored me. I had the great privilege of spending 2 years at the University of Rochester Medical Center under the tutelage and supervision of Dr. Joseph as part of the Endo-Urology Society Robotic Surgery Fellowship Program. This was an amazing 2 years for me because I really got to take part hands-on in a full range of urological robotic procedures, from upper tract, lower tract, cancer to non-cancer, standard index to complex reconstructed cases with him and his team. His team, Dr. Wu, Dr. Rashid, Dr. Ahmed Ghazi recently, they are really pushing the boundaries of robotics. Dr. Joseph himself is a pioneer in this field, having done this for over 20 years, and he has a great name in robotic urological surgery, and in particular in extraperitoneal radical prostate approaches. So now I think without further ado, I'll kind of launch into my presentation, and after that we can have some discussion on some of the issues as I outlined earlier. So I'll start with just outlining where we are with robotic surgery in the present moment. We all know that through FDA clearance for routine clinical use in the US some 20 plus years ago, we've seen multiple generations and iterations of the Da Vinci system. Most recently the single port the past few years. And I'll just share with you one of my anecdotes on this. I had the privilege of going to the Intuitive headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Joseph kindly and very open-heartedly took me along with him and Dr. Wu to Atlanta, and we got some hands-on training on the single port system. And soon afterwards, the single port was at URMC, and this was towards the end of my fellowship training. And for 5 or 6 months or so, we were doing, your standard index cases, but also I was amazed to see him really pushing the boundaries in terms of non-index cases, as yet unreported procedures, applying the single port, and we managed to publish a few of these. So, this is how cutting edge the robotics program is at the URMC, and most institutions like the Vattikuti also likewise. So in the US currently there are 1,500 plus units, which is a huge number. Put it in context globally, there are 6,000 odd units worldwide in 60 plus countries. These are huge numbers. And if we look at, for example, the UK, which is where I did the bulk of my surgical training, currently there are 100 plus units in the UK. To think that, only in 2011, once I was finishing my PhD at UCL, that is when robotics was, the SI system was introduced at UCL. At the time, obviously there was no chance of getting hands-on training as such because I was in a PhD program. I got to witness firsthand the real benefits of robotics. Patients were being subjected to, these were initially radical prostate operations robotically, but these were being done so elegantly. The anatomy was visualization was so good. The patients were recovering so well immediately post-operatively. They looked significantly better, certainly compared to open cases immediately after the operation. The next day they were being discharged. So you saw them back in clinic a couple of weeks later for their Foley catheter removal, and they were recovering really well. They were doing well functionally too, and some of their early oncological outcomes, such as through pathology report and so on, were also excellent at that stage even. So I knew that this was a game changer. This was something that I had to do and pursue in terms of advancing my surgical skills. And that's what led me to the US fellowship ultimately. But, even at that point, to think back, there was a lot of criticism, there was a lot of doubt, there was a lot of cynicism about whether this was going to be a success, even in the UK at that stage, whether this was going to be cost effective, whether this was really going to benefit the patients. And to see the state of play 10, 12 years later, where there are 100 plus units the UK is amazing. A small country the size of the UK, amazing. And this is in the context of a health system which is very nitty-picky in terms of things being cost effective and truly delivering in terms of patient benefits. Now you see celebrities, royals, politicians, clamoring to open new robots every few months in a newer hospital. So it has really proved to be a very success story in the UK, and I'm sure that's how things are abroad, outside in other European countries and elsewhere in the world. We're talking about India and China, the state of play in terms of robotics units. 100 plus units in India at the moment. Compare that to 6 or 7 units some 10, 12 years ago, according to some estimates, which is a significant increase over the last decade. In Delhi alone, there are 15 plus units. My numbers may be slightly outdated. Dr. Bhandari and Dr. Gautam will share their views on this expansion shortly after the webinar, I'm sure. If we look at China also, things have expanded significantly over the last decade. To the extent that in 2019 they had I think almost 60 units installed in that year alone. Similar level of expansion in the Middle East. If we look at this picture of the global numbers in terms of robotics, back in 2010, in terms of the raw numbers, the US is still leading. It's 1,500 plus units currently compared to 1,160 in 2010. Still a huge number there, but if we look at the proportion increase globally in Europe and in Asia, and Middle East and Latin America, things have expanded exponentially in other parts of the world in the last 10-12 years. There are a number of factors which are driving this change. One of the main factors, of course, we can't ignore, is market forces. But what are those market forces? It's to do with better customer experience, better customer outcomes, as in any market space. And the customers here really are first and foremost the patient. The patient's experience, the patient's outcomes are significantly more advanced and better compared to existing services, whether it's open or laparoscopic. As I've alluded to earlier, they have a lesser length of stay with most radical operations. They have less pain, recover quicker, are able to get back to their family and back to the workforce at an earlier stage. They have better functional recovery outcomes, and all these factors lead to a happier patient who is going to advocate for this kind of change. Of course, we can't ignore the surgeons and the hospitals and the systems. We're also users of this new technology. And once we get used to using robotics, we appreciate the technological and other benefits of robotics. So I think these factors are key in driving the change and making progress. If we look at the raw numbers, this is the global market for robotic surgery worldwide. 2010, over $5 billion US, and in 2030, this is projected to exceed $21 billion US. This is a big force that will drive this. But where is all this happening? Of course, we have existing spaces such as North America, which are dominant in terms of the use of robotics. Of course, increasingly, as I've just shown you with the earlier numbers in India, China, Latin America, Middle East, there are emerging markets already which are going to drive this forwards. For anything to move forwards, there are dynamics at play, and factors that drive things forward, and other factors which kind of slow things down or make things a little bit difficult to begin. And I'm just going to talk about some of these. In terms of the driving factors, one of the things that is going to be a positive change is the emergence of newer platforms. And some of these are already authorized for routine clinical use by regulatory bodies in countries such as the EU and the UK, and also closer to home here in India. So, if we look at the market share, back in 2018, around 80%, dominated by Intuitive, but in the coming years, approved systems such as the Hugo system with Medtronic, or the Versio system with Cambridge Medical Robotics from the UK, these are going to have an important say in terms of moving things forwards. I think I'll just share with you my view on something else which is going to drive things forwards, is the expanding applications within specialty, but also in between specialties. So this is a plot from the BJUI publication in 2020, and this looks at the trend in terms of the uptake of robotics from 2008 to 2018 across different specialties. So here you see initially back in 2008, urology being the predominant player in green, but fairly soon afterwards, gynecology really pushed the use of robotics in their own specialty, such that gynecology is one of the main players in most countries in terms of robotics use. The other interesting thing that you can see here clearly is general surgery in green, in dark blue. Sorry. So initially, whereas there was some hesitation in terms of the uptake of systems in general surgery with respect to robotics, in the last 5-10 years, they really have applied robotics in their own specialty, such that it is probably one of the leading players now in the current state. And I saw this firsthand in the UK to a certain extent. I could see the gynecologists beginning to use the Da Vinci system, but I saw it really noticeably in the US, where we had operative cases, robotics cases on a day-to-day basis, and right next door we had the general surgeons and gynecologists also doing a lot of procedures. And for example, in general surgery, they have really transitioned from open to laparoscopic to robotics for most of their index cases. We're talking standard cases like lap cholecystectomies or hernia repairs now being done exclusively robotically in most institutions. Also, they have expanded the applications even within their specialty in terms of tackling more non-index cases like straightforward Whipples or liver resections or bariatric surgery or colorectal surgery and so on. They really have pushed the boundaries in terms of applying the robot. So, this is another graphic from JAMA, fairly recent publication, 2020, and this illustrates, I think, just how transition happens within this short space of time. So, with the introduction of laparoscopic services, the operations transition from open to laparoscopic within a short space of time. But then more recently, with the introduction of robotics, we've seen a steady increase in robotics. And this is, again, really, really noticeable in most affluent and developed countries like the US and more recently in the UK and Europe, and also, I'm sure, in India and China, this is happening already. Dr. Gautam and Dr. Bhandari will, I'm sure, share their views on this shortly. Of course, there are other factors, a few factors which will kind of restrain and cause some challenges. And these are not just exclusive to a developing country scenario. These are also common to most countries. One of the elephants in the room is the cost issue. This is palpable. A palpable problem in most countries, even in the US, North America, Canada, Australia, the UK experience, as I shared with you from 10 years back, some skepticism about cost effectiveness and so on. These are valid questions, and I think, like I said, with the emergence of newer platforms, hopefully there's going to be some competition to help ease the cost issues which get transferred down to the patient. And initially, one of the restraining issues is going to be, they're going to be thinking of, okay, is this going to be a lot cheaper than, is this going to be too much more expensive than laparoscopic or open? Patients are going to think about that. Hospitals are going to think about that. The other factor, I think, is the availability of trained surgeons. And this is where I think really with the help of foundations like the Vattikuti Foundation, it really helped kickstart the robotics program in India, for example, because of the collaboration, the network, the connection, compared to, let's say, initially China or the Middle East, because it wasn't through the want of or lack of funding. It really was that collaboration that helped kickstart it in India so quickly. From the perspective of the robotics company, this is not for me to kind of elaborate too much on. Intuitive, Medtronic, or CML, they would want to see multiple systems, I'm sure, even within the same hospital, when multiple hospitals, preferably within the same geographical location, so that it's easier for them logistically to support technically, as well as from an engineering standpoint. And they're thinking of cost effectiveness themselves. So I think newer competition in terms of newer systems is going to make this easier, hopefully, in the near future. The other challenges in developing countries are going to be some local challenges, and they may be a little bit political or cultural. again, these are not completely exclusive to developing countries. I'm sure you've all had this kind of experience where, initially there may be some experienced and influential surgeons in the hospital or government officials and so on, who may be a little bit reluctant and hesitant to just introduce robotics for whatever reason. There may also be a competition for funding through the same stream, whether it's the government or the hospital system, and they may have equally valid other programs that need funding. And some of the criticism is going to be, okay, where is the scientific data in favor of robotics to say that robotics is conclusively and unequivocally better than existing technologies? And of course, this is a little bit difficult question to answer in some contexts, such as radical cancer surgery, where people are talking about, does it make a difference to cancer-specific survival or overall survival and hard metrics like that? We don't have a lot of randomized studies which show conclusive superiority of robotics. It's pretty much the same. What we do know over the last 10, 20 years is that it has expanded hugely, because it does benefit the patients in terms of their recovery, in terms of the fewer complications, in terms of their experience of routine, standard, as well as major operations. And these challenges are restraining factors, but they can also be huge opportunities. And it's the way that I think we need to look at this issue, if you like. They do represent opportunity to make big strides and grow. And the opportunities are twofold mainly. I mean, the opportunities to the surgeon, to the hospital, to the country, also to the companies themselves. From our perspective, it's an opportunity to initiate, pioneer, cutting edge, advanced technology and bring surgical care up to international standards. That's what's being offered in most developed countries like the US, Europe, and certain parts of Asia. It's an opportunity to bring this up to international standard. It's also, more importantly, an opportunity to offer the advantages conferred by robotics that I've just outlined to our patients. They are first and foremost the beneficiaries of all this, and also an opportunity to offer surgical training to surgeons locally with the availability of the systems locally. For the robotics companies, I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you have a newer emerging market, there is such a thing as a first mover advantage, particularly if there are a few players in the scene. And where we've seen this globally, where the market is expanding in terms of robotics uptake, they do really need to think about also being a fast second mover, because if that market is saturated with one player, then it kind of wraps up the competition. So in conclusion, I just want to share with you some of these points. Firstly, I mean, robotics, we all know, offers a multitude of benefits to the patients, and that is the key driver for a success story worldwide in terms of its global expansion. Developing countries do represent challenges. Some challenges are big, but they also are opportunities. And I think through collaborations like this and through our networks, we can hopefully help create a favorable environment to enable change and to enable progress and growth. I just want to share with you this picture. I think Dr. Gautam is fond of mountaineering, and this is a picture from that went viral a few years ago. This shows hundreds of climbers attempting to summit Mount Everest, which is in Nepal. And whilst I don't see, hundreds of hospitals, clamoring to install robots anytime really soon within the next year or two, I think, hopefully we will see a more clear picture like this, where, we have a handful of hospitals which are prepared to initiate robotics in Nepal, and hopefully through collaborations like this, we can help enable this. Thank you. I think we could open the floor to our panelists to share their views. We can have some discussion. Thank you.
Very fascinating about the dynamics for change, and the new competing platforms, I think, is something that maybe we should begin our discussion with. Please go ahead to our panelists, and I'll stay out of the way, okay?
I think, Pratik, it was a very, very lucid and an excellent presentation. And then the picture that you showed, I think, was taken by not only a Nepalese icon, but a worldwide icon now, Nirmal Purja, when he was on his way back from when he was way back from summiting Mount Everest, and in his journey of the 8,000 plus peaks in a matter of 7 months, I think. So I think from as far as drawing inspiration goes for any activity, whether it's robotic surgery or anything else that we do in life, I think he's one icon that all of us can look up to, and really nice of you to share that picture at the end of your presentation.
Good morning from Rochester, New York. Different time zones all around the world. Fantastic panel. I want to say thank you for having me. Our goal is truly to advance the field, to change the nature of surgery. And robotic surgery has done just that. We have lessened the insult of surgery, less blood loss, less complication, and faster recovery. So we need to do this worldwide. Dr. Gurung has shared his knowledge of practice trends on a global level. Before I go further, I do want to acknowledge the contribution of the Vattikuti Foundation, its leader, Dr. Mahendra Bhandari, who's on the panel here. I had the privilege of meeting Mr. Vattikuti in France 12 years ago at the European Robotic Urologic Symposium, along with Manny Menon. They were there to celebrate the 10th anniversary of robotic surgery in the field. So much has happened since then. What we are witnessing today with the adoption of the field of robotics, the global reach, a lot of the credit goes to the team from the Vattikuti Institute. So once again, thank you, Dr. Bhandari, for your leadership globally in this effort. Once more, my thanks to Dr. Pratik Gurung for the invitation to join him on this platform where he's sharing his vast knowledge of the field. I'll just a couple more words. We were excited to recruit him to Rochester. Pratik was a very practical recruit for us. During the interview process, he distinguished himself as a smart, ambitious surgeon who wanted to make a difference, and now who wants to make a difference. And in fact, to achieve our academic aspirations as an academic department, it's important for us to recruit talented trainees, and we believe talents come from all over the world, and Pratik came to join us as a result. Again, he came on board, he was relentless in showing his talent, his commitment to advance the field. He has been extremely productive academically, making us all better. What is talk to me is clear evidence of his quest to make a difference worldwide, advancing medicine. Again, thank you for sharing your insights. The comment as far as change, it's been challenging to see change going forward. And of course, what Pratik has done along the way is providing evidence for some of the practice patterns, practice changes we've had. And that's key. There are some new robots that have come on the market, and I think they'll have a much easier time as far as adoption than the main robot that most of us have used all around the world to this point. But there are many more coming, and I think it's good for the field to see additional technology being added. I will take specific questions, but I just want to make a couple of comments in that regard. But any more specific to change we want to address, I'm happy to go further, but not to monopolize the discussion either.
So just to add to what Dr. Joseph said, I think I agree pretty much with everything that he said. And one thing in particular that I'd like to highlight is actually the fact that when you talk about robotics, I feel that the biggest advantage of robotics when it comes to minimally invasive surgery is the fact that it doesn't have the same extensive learning curve as laparoscopic surgery has. And by shortening the learning curve, what we are basically doing is that we have the ability to take more patients out of that phase where they are in a surgeon's learning curve and come and get operated by surgeons who have already achieved expertise in that particular procedure. I think to really have the true impact of robotic surgery in improving patient outcomes, especially in light of the fact that the learning curve is small, what we need is the training of the surgeons. A large number of surgeons need to be trained. And Pratik, you got out a really nice point, how Dr. Bhandari and his team at the Vattikuti Foundation have really made it possible in India to transition from a point where there were only a few trained surgeons. I remember Dr. Bhandari saying in even the initial robotic meetings that he used to spearhead, that we need to have 500 plus trained robotic surgeons in a matter of 5 years. I'm not sure if I got the 5 years right, but there was a clear goal that there will be 500 plus trained robotic surgeons. I think I can say now with confidence that due to the efforts that Dr. Bhandari has made and the Vattikuti Foundation, and especially because of the support that has been given in terms of the fellowship programs over the last so many years, in not only in urology, but also in other aspects of surgery, including colorectal surgery and surgical oncology. Because of that, we are very close to achieving that aim where we should be able to provide trained surgeons to more than one trained surgeon to every single hospital who has a robotic system in India. So in India now there are, like you said, 100 plus systems. In our own hospital now, there are actually 4 robotic systems in the same building. So we have 3 Da Vinci systems, 2 Xis, 1 X, and we also have a CMR system, which is used exclusively by general surgery, whereas the other 3 systems are used by other departments as well, the intuitive systems. And the successful running of this has been possible because there are surgeons available to do it. Now, I think that in your aim of establishing a solid robotic program in Nepal, the first thing that you have to focus is on the trained surgeons. And I think there's no better person on the screen than Dr. Bhandari to be able to guide you in that aspect. So why not have kind of a situation where some bright young surgeons from Nepal can have the facility to go to a center where a high volume robotic work is being done and do a 1-year fellowship there. And in the next 2-3 years it takes for the robotic program really to build up in Nepal. You already have a crop of very well trained surgeons who can immediately go and deliver the results and benefit, most importantly, the Nepali citizens and also the healthcare system in the entire country.
What Pratik talked about driving factors, restraining factors, very, very insightful slides and comments by Dr. Gurung. One thing I will also add to your comment, Dr. Gautam, we talk a lot about value. Where is the value in the new technology and adopting this to go back and train and relearn? Value is often defined as better outcomes at lower cost. I want to articulate further on the issue of lower cost. Cost, there are financial costs. We can measure all the costs, but I'm speaking of cost to the patient. We have to lower the cost that what patients have to endure. And how do we do that? By doing exactly what Dr. Gurung did, by seeking appropriate training, like all of us have done on this panel, to really deliver for our patients when they come to us and trust that we give them the best care possible. And our commitment is to advance the field. And how do we do that? By training appropriately. The learning curve is much shorter for robotic surgery, no doubt, but there is a learning curve. And but we got to go to the proper training and have the discipline and the humility to do so, to lessen the cost for our patients.
Uh, Thank you, Jean and Gautam. And I think here I butt in because I would like to help. Both these gentlemen played a very crucial role, and I am witness to it. Jean, you will recall when we were doing IRIS meetings, and I had the odd task of finding out the frontliners, and you were in the list of invitees all the time. So thank you very much for your support and faith in robotics and your charitable words. Gautam, when we are talking of fellowship in India, is not because I'm praising two gentlemen who are on panel. Gautam was the first, I recall, fellowship trained surgeon in India. And that was a great support. And I think to help Pratik, I would like to share some of the slides because quite a bit you guys know, but some of the recipes which we use could help anybody else. And as I said, that Vattikuti Foundation has offered unstinted support to Pratik and Pratik kind of people who really want to do in their community. And I would like to use one beaten up word that wherever there is a difficulty, there is an opportunity. And I see an opportunity for you. Yes, struggle. Every one of us had to struggle when in the, and we, Vattikuti Foundation was no exception. But so I'll share a few slides I have piled up for this. I think the first
Yes.
tribute to Mr. Vattikuti, who had nothing to do with robotics and surgery, established a foundation with his wife in 1997. They did exceedingly well in their businesses. And in around 2000, they decided to establish Vattikuti Urology Institute, which is, in a sense, I was not there at that time. I joined them later, but I was a witness that how that institute was the tipping point for establishing powerful robotic surgery program, and credit goes to Mani Menon. Having seen there, the Vattikuti Foundation doesn't take any claim for, being initiator. It is the Da Vinci machine which did a lot of surgeons like Jean and all who really gave what you call involved in the process of co-creation. Vattikuti Foundation sits even in their programs at the intersection of healthcare, technology, and surgical education. Earlier in the game, we realized that the phrase my friend Alex Motri uses in most of his presentation is a fool with a tool is still a fool. So we realize that the whole beginning point is the surgical education until the technology is in the right hands, implemented in the manner it should be, with inquisitiveness, not for material gains or beat the competition by Me Too phenomenon. Nothing happens. And we are fans of greater technology. After Da Vinci, we established macro programs, and one of my job is to look technologies in incubator. We are not interested in what you call evolutionary technologies like you have new robots. We are looking for a disruptive technology in incubation wherein we can put in our skills, minds, and resources to make them to happen, particularly focusing on Indian markets. What we do is surgical innovation, surgical education, and this is not possible until Foundation was successful in building a very powerful network of global institutions, a network of global surgeons, and the database, because Jean raised a very important point that the whole value chain curve ends at the outcome, patient outcomes. And in one of the meetings with Lonnie Smith, the founder of Intuitive, I asked him what is one thing which had led to the success, and his answer was the patient acceptability. We urologists are looking at the level of evidence and meta-analysis and whether robotic is better or not. That is one part of discussion at academic level. But the fact remains patients with robotic surgery are better off, and that is the major selling point. In India, earlier in the game, why did we go to India? Because our roots are there, and we thought when it could be success in United States or any part of the world. Why Indian patients should be deprived? We were not the first one. The first robot was procured by cardiac surgeon way back in 2000, almost parallel to what Mani Menon got the robot. But we realized in a study done through University of Michigan during my business school days that the tool is in wrong hands. 4 cardiac surgeons and 2 urologists just procured it, and we decided that is a good market. We had to do a lot of whitewashing of the image because we were untouchables. It was expensive. Laparoscopic skills were extremely good, and surgeons found no value in using robotics and it was a difficult business model. We created a business model very different from United States of creating high volume, which is a multi-specialty program. And we trained surgeons for 8 specialties, and the trainers were those who were committed to technology. The hospitals had resources, and they were already high volume laparoscopic or open surgeons. We didn't succeed anywhere, and we had a term introduced is a stalled surgeons, that out of 500 odd, there were good number of surgeons who were trained, but they were not committed. They were looking for increasing their resources by using robotics, which did not work. So the hospital, like where Gagan was working, the first was Medanta. They agreed to our model, and we let this silos of urology having its own robot and gynae having its own robot. That model really worked. As we said, we supported the training of 450 trained surgeons. At that time, all of you would remember that intuitive training was 1.5 days, which I have done 3 times. And that was the only equipment training, and rest of was a blank thing, and it was left to the local credentialing committees in the United States. But in India, we knew that it's not going to work, and we decided to put our resources in training surgeons, and we brought in 140 experts from United States and all over the world. They were the pioneers, name it, in gynae, urology, oncology, head and neck, and they were taken as per the need. Like moment the hernia volume went up by 12%, I had hearkened the best person to go and do few hernias there, and that was the beginning of hernia. So our model was that training surgeons or mentoring or proctoring them in their own environment on own cases, ensuring the patient safety. These are our institutions. We have in Aalst, Belgium. Henry Ford is, of course, our premier institution, and Medanta. And then we had Providence, Female Robotic Surgery Institute, Guy's Hospital, London, Lister, and so and so. These institutions really played and lended us support in anything what we did. Our fellowship program is a matter of pride for us, because we see, and what he said, it was our chairman who announced in one of the meetings in India, which Gagan was telling, and newspapers carried it, that we need 500 surgeons, of which 100 surgeons will be trained through fellowship programs, Vattikuti fellowship programs, and 400 surgeons would be trained on the job, and we did that. And even now, we don't try to support conferences and all on their socials and dinners. I always support them on taking a great mentor, which would excite some people in the audience. These are our fellowship institutions. Gagan is on the top, and this is highly competitive. We don't have too many, but we have 13 fellowship programs. There is no limit of fellowship program, but we are very, very choosy about the center. And our objective is very simple, that within we select the best trained urologist who has good experience of endourology and other open urological procedures. And within a year, this person should be independently performing robotic surgery and console work. here I would like to compliment that our fellows are everywhere. This is only, we could trace 40 fellows. We have about 50 of them. And they are really showing this proof of the pudding is the outcome that these fellows are manning most of the departments. And many programs, I know they approach me and they say, we want to have robotics, but first you give us a trained surgeon. And I tell them, take this guy like this. And same thing happened to Apollo Navi Mumbai. Pratik's one, I mean, say the Gagan's one of the fellows is manning that program. And I must bring in here that our fellowship mentors or directors are so committed for longitudinal training that I remember that when the fellow came back from United Kingdom after Vattikuti Fellowship, it was Gagan who was there to mentor him for a few cases. So that is the kind of commitment we look. We did global robotic meetings to expose the best of the what is happening across the globe. We invested in Robotic Surgeons Council meeting because we always wanted it initially outside the politics of the specialty societies. And every year till pandemic really brought an onslaught and gave push to our online education or virtual webinars and master classes. Every year foundation would do fund 2 fellowships of all those surgeons who were practicing robotic surgery. Our database, which is being contributed, we have close to 25,000 cases, which is a prospective database, HEPA controlled, and a lot of publications have come, but it's very selective. Now we have added transoral surgery this year, and as and when we see volume, we add that. And now the biggest thing is we do master classes, and we have established Vattikuti School of Academics very recently, and this is the very first program we are doing in India in partnership with Manipal Academy of Health Education in Manipal, wherein we are bringing the best of the people, and my pride is that all of them were our ex-fellows who in their own right are the leaders, except for Ricardo Campai I brought in, and most of our master classes are very by men, by the best in the world, and we look forward. And the objective of this program, Gagan particularly appreciate, is like what your Gopal has done, is that how do we give the recipe to the young academicians to create a research work which would find place in high impact international journals. We have had a scholar program, Vattikuti Scholar Program, and you see that Mario Lato from Memorial Sloan Catering, Gottlieb from McGill, Krishnanshu Tiwari, all authorities including Ash Tiwari. And we keep on changing our programs. And to tell here, we are backing Gurung to start a regional Vattikuti program, and Gurung would be leading program in that part of the world, and we'll support him in new program. This is the very first beginning. Take the example of HIPAC, and this is the best team where they have they are running multicentric trials, and they did a master class. And similarly, we are looking for to give the best to it. So I think this is all I have to say, and we will leave it for discussion. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to let you know what foundation doing, not that you did not know already. So thank you.
There are a couple of questions for Dr. Gurung in the Q&A. One is about the risk unique to robotic system. Do they outweigh the benefits? Question from the Philippines. Dr. Gurung, I'll take that. From Vincent Solidum.
Okay, I can't see the question, but if I can, let me just have a quick look. So what are the infrastructure challenges? I think this is a different question, but to go back to what you were alluding to, Dr. Joseph, in terms of risks, question posed from the Philippines. Yes, of course. I mean, there are risks from the surgeon's perspective, from the hospital's perspective, from the institutional perspective. in terms of initiating something new. Of course, there are apprehensions whenever something new is introduced. There are learning curves, there are teething problems, as Dr. Gagan has alluded to, in terms of even in India with all the support available. There are issues, and I'm sure you've also had experiences of such issues initially, trying to kind of get over the learning curve and trying to deliver the best that you could possibly do without complications or risks. The risk is inherent to any operation, and as we've just explained, the more exposure we have in terms of getting mentorship in high volume centers, accredited fellowships such as the Vattikuti Foundation training program, such as the Endo-Urology Society accredited training program at URMC. These are all bona fide training programs where you can get high quality, high volume training and reduce your learning curve in a significant way. Of course, robotics offers inherent benefits compared to, for example, trying to learn laparoscopic, which Dr. Gagan was alluding to earlier. There's a far shorter learning curve, so you're able to deliver quality service in a far more efficient time scale, if you like. Yes, if the only way to kind of not have complications or risks is not to do anything. As I've just mentioned, these are calculated risks we must take on board, and as an individual, as a conscientious surgeon, we would wish to kind of have a humble approach and take on board all the learning opportunities you could probably do so, preferably in an accredited environment. See that question? I saw it a second ago. Let me just have a look.
It's really the infrastructure to starting in Nepal, again, which the Vattikuti Foundation is helping with, along with great training that you've had.
So the question is from a gentleman, Safik Nupani. What are the infrastructure challenges to starting robotic surgery in Nepal? Do you think it's wise to have a government hospital start this initially, but training part is a major challenge for government centers? Question mark. For private hospitals, the investment modality still doesn't make sense given health financing is predominantly out of pocket, and they will be reluctant to kick off KO start robotics. Yes, I mean, that's a entirely valid question. These are questions posed in any health system. I just shared with you my own kind of anecdotal experience of all this kind of question marks, if you like, questions and question marks initially. Even at UCL in London, when it was initially being introduced, there were a lot of questions from within the department, from outside, and I'm sure from the general public and the funding bodies and so on. There are always challenges like these. There are always questions like these. And like Dr. Bhandari has mentioned, the proof of the thing is in the eating. So, this global success of the robotics program is a testament to how successfully it's delivered advanced care to a lot of people worldwide. Okay, and we just need to try and deliver that to emerging countries where it is not yet initiated. And Nepal, should be right up there in terms of the queue. The queue may not look like the Mount Everest queue, but if it's a little bit of a queue and we can get things started, then it would significantly benefit the Nepali population.
On a lighter note, Pratik, I think the challenge is always to get the first robot in a city. The next 5 come within the next 5 months. Yes. It's just because somebody has to take the first step. Because firstly, there is also a little bit of a spirit of competition that if one hospital has got it, then look, we also need to be up there. And secondly, probably the more important thing is that people actually start seeing the benefit. Start seeing the benefit in terms of what the outcomes are and how the patients are reacting to it, and what kind of surgeons, how they are developing their talent in a particular specialty. So with that, somebody else takes the first step, but then everybody is like the fast second mover move starts and I think that's exactly what's going to happen in Nepal as well. So somebody has to take take the leap of faith, if one may call it that.
There's a question about training. I hope Dr. Gurung can put together a great team to get your program on the way. Dr. Bhandari, maybe you can address this.
Yeah.
Alohado is asking if nurses can also have the opportunity to be trained by your foundation.
Yeah, so I think that very good two questions. I'll first address the Gagan's question. I'll join him in him that how this happens. I can see we are reliving the same thing what we had in India in 2010. And what we had to do was, there are three stakeholders in the game. And the fourth you can count is patient. One is the surgeon. Second is the hospital. And hospitals are not charitable. They want to make money. So what we need to do is we had to prepare three financial plans and first sell it to surgeons, because no hospital is going to buy until the surgeons say that yes, it would be cost effective. So we have to really calculate the volumes, prepare the surgeons from different specialty to give a feed to the person is, say, hospitals in new technologies were willing to lose money provided they have a potential to see. Like one of the charitable hospitals we started in Gangaram, and they said that don't worry, we don't want to make profit as long as the cost of consumable is returned to us. And very soon they got into the profit line from red to black. So what Gagan says is that we need to specifically work in Nepal, and I'm willing to work with you to collect data, go to the high volume laparoscopic surgeons, count the number of cases from their historical data and prepare a financial and say, look, you are going to break even in 3 years. At the same time, you have blah, blah advantage of first mover in the market and all. Coming to Jean's question, I think you nailed it, that team is the most important thing which will bring confidence to the hospitals. But I would really caution you, planting people from outside, however excellently trained they are, there is a tremendous foreign body reaction. Because we had a situation in gynecology, we had a person who was trained for 2-year fellowship from England. He got a job in a hospital, but there the gynecologist ruling the roost used to do 250 hysterectomies, was 70, 68 years old, and she said, I don't want to sneak around anything new. I am doing what I am doing. So this person with his training was as good as giving lectures and all. So what I would think in Nepal's model is we have to look from the people within the system who have high volume, who have influence and are willing to change to new technology, and then at our cost we need to train these people. They don't need training. If a laparoscopy surgeon is doing well for 10-15 years with high volume, they don't need fellowship program. We have shortcuts to train, and our model is to bring them to a hospital like Gagan's or somewhere, and then once they understand the game, get the intuitive certification, I don't know what are the current rules, and then fly a mentor when he has collected 7 or 8 cases to give a push to robotic surgery. Like if you ever begin a program and if you think that you need support, because it's not only technical confidence, it is the public confidence that if anything goes wrong, nothing should come to you and kill your reputation and program for all times to come. So the training, building a team is very important, and that you need to understand the ecosystem, geography, which hospitals you can convince. But my request is don't go to hospital administrators until you have prepared a financial which would appeal to him, that yes, there is money, is not purely academics or charity. And begin with surgeons. I used to sit, Gagan would remember, in OPD with the surgeons in Medanta. I camped in Delhi for 3 months in order to just, when first 4 robots were even activated, because there you have to answer a lot of questions. You have to carefully know what they are doing and what exactly what they say and what they don't say. So I think 2 points, 100% you have to work on building a team and building everything which you can't say that, this is not my job, let hospitals look into. We have to look into so that we can satisfy them financially.
Thank you, Dr. Bhandari, for those very helpful and insightful comments. Some of the issues, some of the questions raised by from outside relating to this in terms of risks, in terms of logistical problems, in terms of infrastructural problems are valid questions. As you've mentioned, as Dr. Gagan has mentioned, as Dr. Joseph has kind of stressed upon, it's important that that I, with your help, push this forward, try and build a team and get the relevant stakeholders involved to try and make this happen. I think, with your foundation's support so close by in India, with Dr. Gagan so close by, with your vast experience of helping such a successful program in India, it's just a matter of time that we can also kind of make that happen in Kathmandu, in Nepal, and in other parts of Nepal too. I can see that happening within the next few years. Certainly, a handful of robotic systems within Kathmandu within the next few years, and then a few years later, probably in larger cities outside of Kathmandu. I mean, to put it in geographical context, Kathmandu is only less than an hour and a half flights away from Delhi, and Kathmandu is in that sense a lot closer to Delhi than most other cities are, and historically, culturally, regionally, we have so much similarities. We have an open border. You don't need a lot of you don't need a passport to travel across. Just a simple document is more than enough, and also there are very few trade restrictions. So it's just a matter of kind of getting all the recipes together and in a brotherly fashion, try and help push academic surgery, help push robotic surgery in the right direction in Kathmandu and in our region. And thank you for the invitation to take part academically also through the Vattikuti Foundation. It would be my pleasure to push that the other side of the token academic development forwards in our region.
So far, our fellowship program was for India, but listening to this exciting discussion, I'll be very happy to open it for Nepalese candidates if the regulations permit, and we can consider that. There is one question on fellowship. Dave, would you be able to answer this question in Q&A box? Some gentleman wants to know about the eligibility for our fellowship.
I just put a link on the screen to the Vattikuti Foundation website announcement about the fellowships, but the fellows have to be within 1 to 10 years of earning their degree in surgery, and they must have several letters of recommendations from faculty that they've worked under, or colleagues or surgeons, the head of departments. They have to also provide us with their CVs and their background. But go to the website and all the details, all the requirements are there. And the openings for applications ends at August 22, if I'm not mistaken. So you've got a couple of weeks to prepare a very good application. Usually we get dozens and dozens of applications from qualified applicants and are only able to do maybe 10 to 15 fellowships. Dr. Gautam has been very generous. He's been a mentor surgeon for many Vattikuti fellows, and maybe you have some more information you'd like to share about what you look for in your fellows.
That's a great point, Dave. Thank you for the question. I think academic credentials are a must. I do believe that anybody who's gone through a surgical training has the ability to be a very good robotic surgeon. given due experience and exposure and proper hands-on training, which is basically our responsibility. What we had a clear mandate right from the beginning when we had our first fellow in 2016, and Ashwin was being mentioned by Dr. Bhandari. He's leading his program in Apollo Hospital, Navi Mumbai, and he was our first fellow. And at that time, we had made it very clear and that we are going to strive our very best to make the best trained fellow available to the Indian surgical community after a period of 1 year. And there's no internal competition as such, but we always try that our surgeon should, our fellow should be able to complete, by doing various steps of the procedures that we do. He should be able to complete, have the ability to do a safe and complete robotic procedure, which in our case mostly is a robotic prostatectomy, because 70 to 80% of our practices in our hospital is that. But having said that, the most important thing is, of course, the academic credentials, whether because we are members of the Vattikuti Collective Quality Initiative, the VCQI database. So our main focus is also to make sure that the fellow is very conscious about entering the data here and also being able to utilize the data to do clinical research and outcomes research and publish. And in fact, I would, Dr. Bhandari also mentioned our current fellow, Dr. Gopal Sharma, who's actually has 6 papers from the Vattikuti VCQI database, which are in various processes, which are in various stages of being published in very good journals, and 1 or 2 of them have been accepted already. So academic credentials, and thirdly, of course, we want to make sure that the dedication and the attitude and the sincerity of the fellow is something that is beyond any doubt. And for that, not only would I speak to the prospective fellows that have been shortlisted by Dave and Dr. Bhandari, but I would also make it a point to speak to their mentors personally as well, because in the Indian urology community is not that large a community. Everybody knows everybody, so I can just pick up the phone and call my friends and my seniors who have worked with the prospective fellow and to take their opinion. And of course, the letters of recommendation have their place, like Dave mentioned. So these are some of the things that I would look at when I would be going through the applications that hopefully Dave will send me soon for our next fellow.
Can I just add that to the comments Dr. Gautam, well on target, talent, commitment. What I would add is someone I'd want to work with, with my family, work with my family. And I want to say that Dr. Gurung was given the option of staying in New York and join our team, but he chose to go back to Nepal to initiate, to launch a program there. So just want to add that key to recruit those you'd want to work on your family. So,
Gene, I don't think you could have given a bigger compliment to your student than you have done just now. I'm sure he deserves it, but I'm sure you made his day and probably his month and year as well.
Yes, there is that intangible that I like to call heart when we're reviewing applications. It really means a lot. People that just recite facts and figures in their application, as opposed to saying, I want to come out, I want to help others. It means a lot. It really does. And that's a key, I think, is, people like you, gentlemen, that are all here serving the community through your work. It looks like maybe we're at a point where we're looking to wrap things up. Am I correct in this?
Pratik, would you like to close the panel, or any questions panelists might have, you may answer?
Dr. Joseph, thank you for the kind words. It was an absolute privilege. It was the time of my career. Spending 2 years at Rochester, I really learned so much from yourself and your team, and I enjoyed the snow. It was an amazing time. And thank you, Dave, for the kind words. Yes, I think it is our task as doctors and as surgeons to try and do the best for our patients and if the best is, some advanced level of surgery as we see it over the last 10, 20 years, then that's what we need to try and deliver. And that's what we will try and strive for.
Thank you again. And we will see you hopefully at another webinar soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Goodbye.